Hey there, it's Jane Miller. Thanks for joining me on this preview to 12-12-12. During our big event on 12-12-12, I promised that in the first 12 minutes I was going to share with you a secret that would have enormous impact on your life if you'll just take the time to use it and review it. So let's begin here, since many of you have asked. There's a single mental move which, if you make it in a millisecond, will solve enormous problems for you. It has the potential to improve almost any personal or business situation that you'll ever encounter. It could literally propel you down the path to incredible success. Yeah, there's a name for this mental activity, and it's almost magic. What is it? Decision. I suppose that there's a number of subjects that school never taught us, and one that stands out above the rest is decision and definite decision. I think probably one of the major weaknesses of any educational system is they neither teach nor encourage the habit of definite decision. And you know that I studied Napoleon Hill, and he wrote an entire chapter on the subject. And he suggested it as the only way to master procrastination. Isn't that great? Now, the habit of indecision was acquired because, well, not only the deficiencies in our school system, but it goes into our occupation as well. In fact, if students even choose an occupation, get this, generally, a student or a graduate just out of school, they seek any job that they can find, take the first position that comes about because they've fallen into a habit of indecision. Now, 98 out of 100 people that work for wages today probably are in the positions they hold because they didn't have the definite decision to plan or take a definite position. Now, Napoleon Hill made it really clear in his writings that definiteness of decision always requires courage. Now, if you've read Dr. Carol Hildebrand, she wrote a couple of paragraphs on decision that I believe should be just chiseled in granite. Let's hear what she said. She said there is a corollary element that must go hand in hand with the decision, and that is commitment. It must be a committed decision. Most of us have weak decision-making muscles, and we don't even recognize what it means to make a real decision. We fail to realize the force of change which a truly congruent, committed decision makes. Part of the problem is that when we use the term decision so loosely, it's become to describe our wishes, not our commitments. Instead of making decisions, we state our preferences. Now, she says that the word decisions comes from Latin roots, the D meaning from and the cadere meaning to cut. Therefore, a decision means cutting away from any other possibility. Isn't that great? So a true decision then means you are committed to achieving a result, then cutting yourself off from any other possibility. Now, committed decisions show up in two places: your calendar and your checkbook. Let me tell you what I mean. So no matter what you say you value, or even think you say what your priorities are, you only have to look at your calendar last year and your checkbook to see if the decisions that you made held any true value. So for me, I'm committed to growth, both professionally and personally. So if you looked back at my calendar, there's always multiple continuing education courses and seminars and anything in the personal growth area as far as workshops and such. True, my checkbook then is filled with tuition disbursements, purchases of books and videos, checks made out to workshops. What's the bottom line? Look back and see how you've reserved your time. Look at your expenditures. Those are the roadmaps to the decisions that you've made in the past. I'll also tell you where else decision shows up: in freedom. It's as if a tremendous burden has been lifted from our shoulders. That's what making a committed decision can do for you. Let's go a little further. I've talked about in the first 12 minutes the automatic thing that's going to make your dreams come true, and it's just to decide. But there's also responsibility. And sometimes I often refer to it as being the key to freedom. Your future can be everything you've ever dreamed about, and then some. You already have the talent and the tools to experience one great day after another, and that is, in fact, what I believe the architect of the universe, our Lord, our God, had in mind for you when you were created. It's not that so you could just sit around and not be endowed with such awesome powers. Val Vanderwall wrote, "When a person takes responsibility for their life and the results they are attaining, they will cease to blame others as a cause of their results." And really, you cannot change other people, right? So blame is inappropriate. Blaming only causes another person to stay bound in kind of a prison that they make. But when you take responsibility, blame is eliminated, you're accountable, and you're free to grow. What's awesome is responsibility opens the door, permits you to just walk right down into freedom. Now, if you find yourself confined to such a mental state, understand there's a way out. You can escape. It's possible. The master key fits the lock, and it's clearly marked. It's within everyone's reach. It is responsibility. You know, when a person refuses to accept responsibility for their life, they reject their uniqueness. They turn all of their special powers and talents and gifts over to other people. Then they're no longer in control of their future. They'll be hoping that something good will happen, but because of their past and the experiences that they've had, they'll likely be expecting something that they don't want to happen. But when you accept responsibility for your life and for the results which you alone determine, you will develop confidence and your dreams will be realized. And your plans can be carried out. Just really the awareness of this idea just opens up a magnificent truth. It's like Aladdin's lamp, a magic wand and the truth fairy all wrapped up into one. So again, the committed decision and then taking responsibility for it will take you so far. Dr. Rollo May, and Rollo was a distinguished psychiatrist, wrote that the opposite of courage in our society, it's not being a coward, it's conformity. You know, it requires great courage to take responsibility for your life. It's so much easier to just blame someone else or something outside of you. George Bernard Shaw said, "People are always blaming circumstances for what they are, and I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances that they want. And if they can't find them, they make them." Isn't that great? I believe those who win big in life take responsibility and create their own destiny. You know, earlier on we suggested that responsibility brings with it a certain amount of freedom. And for a lot, these last couple of minutes have maybe been life altering for you, and I hope so. With the proper understanding, this gives you the power to free you of unnecessary mental weight that maybe you've been carrying around for a long time. Now, this concept of responsibility sometimes is misunderstood to many. And ignorance of the principle will cause you or could cause you to experience anger, guilt, and resentment. And here's what it is. There's a vast difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. It seems so simple, but I don't want you to let this apparent simplicity fool you. I'm going to repeat it again. There's a big difference between being responsible for and being responsible to. You know, it's not uncommon to hear parents, and I've done this as well, blame themselves and assume responsibility for something that happened to their child, and that child might be 40 years old. If only we could have, or I should have. Far too often we assume responsibility for something when, in fact, The real duty to the person may have ended a long time ago. But unfortunately, a lot of us carry that baggage around with them, never realizing we have a choice. The correct interpretation is this: you are responsible for your feelings and your results, not the other person's. Again, you're responsible for your feelings and your results, not the other person's. You may be responsible to another person for one thing or another, but not for them. Now, the exception is when you choose to take on the responsibility of raising children until they reach the age of maturity. In that case, you're probably responsible both to them and for them until that time when they can start taking care of themselves. Sometimes some of us might even contemplate having someone else take on our responsibilities for us to keep us. And then we trick ourselves into thinking that by doing this, we'd be more free to play and have fun and do what we wanted. But it might never enter our minds that the exact opposite would happen. Because when you permit others to take on your responsibilities, guess what? You become dependent upon them, upon their generosity. They become the giver and you the receiver. It just is not going to work. Hopefully, it becomes clear that this kind of behavior only leads to a lack of things, a life of lack, limitation, resentment, and confusion. Again, you are responsible for the results in your life. You're responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your health, your wealth, your emotional state. Regardless of what has happened in the past, the future lies ahead with an open slate. Remember that open door? The future's waiting for us to take control of it and create the life we want. Here is a marvelous quote and some affirmations that I'd really like you to review and look at and read every day. And again, it really talks to the point of saying yes to yourself. Just decide and say yes to your commitment. Be responsible for it. W.H. Murray, now he was a mountaineer and had some wonderful writings about his Himalayan expedition, but he says, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen events, meetings, and material assistance, which no one could have dreamed would have come their way. Again, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, and the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. Well, I hope you have enjoyed our preview to 12-12-12. This is just one snippet that if you just do these two things, will send you on your way. So again, decide and be responsible for it. If you haven't registered, please go to themillerinstitute.com/12 or call us at 1-800-540-2610 and we'll get you registered right up. Don't miss the date, 12-12-12. See you soon.